Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about art description and analysis. 我是陈雨安,
我是赖品雷。
and this is our outline.
And the artwork we choose today is La Japonaise, and it is painted by Claude Monet in 1876. The size of the artwork is 231.8 centimeters times 142.3 centimeters, and the medium Monet used is oil on canvas. And the technique he used in this artwork is quite different from the typical Monet's artwork. For his typical artwork, he used loose and expressive brushstrokes, which is the characteristic of Impressionism. But in La Japonese's artwork, there is more precise decorative approach, especially for the details of the kimono. He emphasized the texture and the patterns contrasting with the more fluid brushwork in the background. And the full-length portrait depicts a European woman in a red kimono standing in front of a wall decorated by Japanese fans. Monet's first wife, Camille, was the model in the painting. And the painting was first exhibited in the Second Impression exhibition of 1876, and it is now exhibited at the Museum of Fine Art in Boston. And now I would like to briefly introduce Claude Monet. He was born in 1840 and died in 1926. He was a French painter and the leading figure of the Impressionist movement, which revolutionized the artwork in the late 19th century. His innovative approach to painting emphasized light, color, and atmosphere over precise detail, creating a style that broke away from traditional academic art. And Monet's work, including his famous Impression Sunrise, he made in 1872, gave the Impressionist movement its name. Though initially he met with criticisms, his vibrant and expressive painting became highly influential. And later in life, Monet created some of his most iconic works in his garden at Giverny, including his celebrated Water Lily series. And known for his experimentation and love for Japanese art, Monet's legacy continues to inspire artists worldwide. And his 1876 painting La Japonaise reflects the East-West cultural exchange that captivated Europe during his time.
Next, I'm going to talk about the composition and layout of this piece. For the foreground, it's Monet's wife, Camille Monet. She is the central figure, wearing a vibrant red kimono decorated with gold and floral patterns. Her pose holding a fan is dynamic. People think she's dancing to a traditional Japanese dance. It emphasized the movement and elegance. And for the midground, we can see the background features a patterned wall adorned with the Japanese fans, adding to the theme of Japanism. These fans are scattered to create a sense of depth and emphasize the cultural context. And for the background, while less detailed, the background provides contrast to the elaborate kimono. It's relatively flat, directing focus to Camille and the ornate garments. And next, we're gonna talk about color and shading. For the dominant color, it's bold red. Dominates the composition, symbolizing vitality and luxury. Gold accents add warmth and a sense of richness. And maybe it's hard to see from here, but we can see touches of white and blue in the kimono's floral design. It provides contrast with the red. And for the shading and light, the piece features soft, natural lighting, typical of Monet's styles, illuminating Camille's face and the texture of the kimono. The shading on her figure gives depth, but the overall flatness of the background enhances the two-dimensional decorative elements. And unlike the normal Monet tones, very mild and gentle, this piece gives the vibrant yet still warm palette creates an exotic and celebratory tone. The colors and texture evoke a fascination with Japanese culture, reflecting the 19th century European craze for Japanism. This piece demonstrates the Monet's ability to combine impressionist techniques with detailed decorative elements, making it a unique exploration of cultural exchange. Next, I'm gonna talk about the motifs. First is the kimono. The red kimono worn by Camille Monet is a striking foreign element central to the painting. Monet chose this garment to showcase the allure of Japanese design and its craftsmanship, reflecting the Japanese movements that captivate Europe during the late 19th century. Next is the samurai. Samurai was exotic and emblematic of Japanese culture to Western audience. Samurai were symbols of strength, honor, and tradition in Japanese culture. Monet's choice to feature this figure on the kimono might be a nod to these values, but it's also likely decorative, reflecting the ornate designs of imported Japanese textiles, and also contrasts to Camille's persona. Camille is elegant, soft pose contrast to the samurai dynamic and martial image, adding the elements of intrigue to the composition. It underscores the blending of Eastern motifs and Western sensibility in the artwork.
And now I would like to talk about the historical and cultural background. This artwork La Japonaise reflects the growing influence of Japanisms in Europe. Japanism is a trend sparked by Japan opening its borders to the West after over 2 centuries of isolation. And the import of Japanese goods and art captivated European artists. And given the popularity of Japanisms in France at this time, Monet drawed and hoped to sell La Japonaise at a high price to ease his financial difficulties. And 40 years later, Monet reveals that he was ashamed by the fact of having painted the work simply because he wanted to please the market, and also calling it a piece of filth. And also, some scholars suggest that Monet may have been more invested in this subject than it is commonly assumed. It is said that he sought the opinion of a prominent Japanese art collector while working on this piece. However, others argue this letter might have been a promotional strategy, aimed at enhancing the painting's reception in the market and fascinated by Japanese aesthetics. And besides, when La Japonaise was exhibited in 1876, it received a mixed response. Some praised its innovative approach and striking use of color, but others criticized it as bizarre and even sexually suggestive. In response to the criticisms, Monet did not entirely withdraw the painting from the public view, but it remained a lesser discussed work compared to his other masterpiece. And later in Monet's life, he distanced himself from the painting. And even in contemporary times, this artwork, La Japonaise, still has sparked some debate. In 2015, the Museum of Fine Art in Boston hosted an event inviting visitors to pose in front of the painting while wearing a replica of the kimono depicted in the artwork. While it was intended as an interactive celebration of cultural exchange, the event faced criticisms from some critics who perceive this event as an act of cultural appropriation. And this incident underscores the ongoing complexities of interpreting historical art in a modern context.
So, at last, we're gonna talk about our personal reflection. First, I'm gonna talk about why we choose this piece. First of all, it's about cultural exchange. La Japonaise is a perfect example of cultural exchange because it encapsulates the Western fascination with Japanese art during the time when Japan was just opening up to the international trade. This painting highlights how these influences were not just absorbed but reinterpreted in a European context, showing how art evolves through intercultural dialogue. So the cultural exchange part really reflects to what we learned in this class. And next is the relevance to modern conversations. In today's globalized world, La Japonaise raises questions about how we approach and interact with other cultures. discussion about cultural appropriation and mutual influence make this painting incredibly relevant, providing a bridge between historical and contemporary issues. So we talk about the controversy of the Kimono Wednesday incident. For me, I totally don't agree with that. I feel like culture is for us to share, is for us to learn from each other. I think as long as people don't exchange cultures and opinions in a derogatory way, it's a good thing that we embrace exotic cultures. So this is also how this painting resonates with me, is that this piece captures a moment in history when art and commerce brought two very different worlds together. The painting invites reflection on both the allure of the exotic and in European art and the complex power dynamics underlying cultural exchange. People might say this painting is the Western tendency to commodify and reinterpret foreign culture for aesthetic pleasure. But I don't think that way. I think this is a great example of the exchange between cultures during the 19th century. I also find the theoretical quality of the painting quite compelling. Camille Monet is not just a woman in a kimono. She's a European woman embodying an imaged Japanese persona. This idea of role playing, of cultural performance adds a thought provoking dimension to the work, sparking questions about identity, representation, and the boundaries between appreciation and appropriation.
And for my personal reflection, as a modern person that is born in the 21st century, it is hard for me to understand the harsh criticisms Monet received during that time. By modern standards, the painting's elegance, vibrancy, and cultural exploration seem far from controversial. In fact, what was once viewed as sexually suggestive is now more widely interpreted as a celebration of the beauty. And this shift in perception reminds us of how cultural attitudes evolve over time, and the artists who were ahead of their era. And that's all we want to say. Thank you.
Thank you.